think of yoga as poses on mat or as something reserved for the young, flexible, or spiritually serene. But I also believe, listeners, that healing begins not with a perfect posture, but with the courage to realign with ourselves, with our bodies, and with the stories that we have carried. So just imagine what happens when yoga is reimagined as a medicine for the mind, the body, and even the entire healthcare system itself. Well, listeners, welcome back to this episode of the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, as always. And today's guest, Rachel Lundberg, knows this transformation firsthand. A chronic illness survivor, a former woman who left everything familiar at age 41, and a lifelong mover and educator, Rachel created Yoga Oak University and also the Alignment Based Yoga Specialist certification. What's her mission? To empower yoga teachers and even healthcare providers to guide people into safe, sustainable, and also deeply personal practices that honor every body's story. So this episode is not about listeners, bending further, but it is about healing to the deepest levels possible. And that's the kind of mindful living I think we all crave for. So with that, Rachel, welcome to the show. And it is really an honor to have you, every time with us. Yeah.
Thank you, Sana. I'm super excited to be here, and what a beautiful introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Rachel. I think this is such a such a different perspective of looking at yoga because in the popular culture we have always seen yoga as this either like calmness or peace or flexibility, all those poses on posters or maybe sometimes on product packaging and all that. And so many people, we all kind of picture yoga as headstands and complicated flows, but the best thing that I really admire here is you are reframing it as something which is accessible for chronic illness, aging, or anyone who is feeling disconnected. So for you, let's start with your story. What was the turning point in your own healing, Rachel, where you realized yoga it needed to look different?
Mm, Thank you for asking that. I will say that being in movement my entire life made when I came into the yoga practice in my late 20s, um, I it was very easy for my body to move through the postures. I already was well trained in dance, and I had a lot of mobility and flexibility in my body. And so the yoga practice itself came very naturally to me, the physical yoga practice. What I was craving at the time when I came to yoga was more peace in my life. And it started out through movement and had deepened into a much deeper level of peace and connection by following the journey of my life. Um, So I came into yoga as a young mother of 3 small children. I came in when I was after the birth of my 3rd child, and I was having panic attacks and not able to sleep and just incredibly overwhelmed, did not feel well in my body or my mind, and was really struggling. I found a yoga class that really resonated for me, and it was based more in the Iyengar tradition, which was very and is very alignment based, and it gave me a structure to work with. And then as I explored deeper and started to train to become a teacher, I started to learn more about the philosophy of yoga. And that little thread of movement and philosophy started to weave its way through my life because at that time, what I didn't realize is that I would be spending the next about 10 years of my life dealing with chronic stress and chronic illness. That if I had not had that yoga influence, I think it would have been much harder for me to navigate. And now on the other side of that chronic illness, I can see that yoga is well, I like to think of it as yoga is life, and it's another word for life to me. This is my own personal opinion, and the way that I interpret it and feel it is that yoga represents life, and so each one of us is living a yoga. And when our yoga is in alignment, our life is in alignment, then things flow more fluidly, more easily, more joyfully. And it's the same in our physical practice. So I have a deep passion for the alignment of the body. And then that extends and deepens into the alignment of life. And how does that alignment work for each individual person? Because it is very unique to each one.
Exactly. Exactly. That's really beautifully put, Rachel. And I think this really uh, gives yoga its unique identity and that essence, because until now, from the uh, perspective of practicing, it has been portrayed as something which is only for fitness, or maybe for just trying to piece down. But giving it a new identity, I think it really redefines the script here for yoga. And of course, you know, it has been an internal, a very a very internal part of your life, of your journey. Now, I would like to understand. I think our listeners would also be very interested with this. So, you are not only focusing on redefining yoga, but then you're also empowering yoga teachers and even the healthcare providers also. But then before that, let's try to understand, I mean, what gaps do you see right now in healthcare, or maybe in the relation between healthcare and yoga, or the perception of yoga in the healthcare system?
But so I do believe that the healthcare system recognizes yoga as a way for people to feel more calm, less stress. The data shows that, um, people that are practicing yoga are indeed have, maybe a little bit more resilience with their nervous system because of the practices that they've been doing. But what happens is that when somebody reads an article by a health provider or their health provider says, you should take yoga, that person goes out into the world looking for a yoga class. And yoga, I just compared the word yoga to life. It's kind of like sending someone out there and saying, okay, go figure it out. It's supposed to be peaceful and it's supposed to help your body. And so they go out and they look at their local gym or they look at their local studio and, or, their community center, and they find a yoga class. And it might have a fancy name attached to it. It might not just say yoga. It probably doesn't just say yoga. It probably says, it might say vinyasa, or it might say ashtanga, or it might say, a lot of different things. And, but it's attached to yoga because all of those things are yoga practices. And somebody walks into that space to take a class, but what they're not always prepared for is the variety of yoga styles, and also the variety and of teaching proficiency. So when so if I'm somebody who's injured and I'm looking to try yoga to rehab my body,
Mhm.
or maybe I have experienced a lot of trauma, um, and I'm going to, maybe I want to be in a yoga space that helps me feel really safe. Sending someone just to yoga is a wonderful first step, but oftentimes, I shouldn't say oftentimes, but many times, somebody will step into a yoga class, feel uncomfortable
Yeah.
because they aren't sure about what they're supposed to wear, or if they're supposed to wear socks or not, or if they are supposed to have a mat. Should they use props? Should they not use props? What are these words that the teacher is saying, especially here in the West, if they're using Sanskrit, then
Uh,
then they might not understand the words. And then oftentimes teachers are just guiding a class. And there's a big difference in my mind between guiding a class and teaching a class.
mm,
And so the alignment based yoga specialist program is based in helping teachers learn to teach the practice based
mm,
on the very physical mechanics of this body. Because across the globe, we all have the same joints and muscle groups. And I feel like there's a huge gap in on both. I'll talk about both the side of the healthcare providers and the yoga teachers, but for the yoga teachers, there's a huge gap of not really understanding how the body works. So when there's somebody in a pose and it looks like it's off, a lot of times yoga teachers have no idea what to do, how to correct it, or how to cue it differently to help that person be
mm,
able to continue with the practice. That gap in yoga teaching provides a gap for the healthcare providers because when they say go to yoga, and then that person goes out to a yoga class in a yoga class and they get injured because their body couldn't do what everybody else's body was doing. Then we've lost a yoga student and we've lost the opportunity. Maybe they'll come back later, but a lot of times they're like, I tried that. I'm not flexible enough, or I got hurt, or I felt uncomfortable. And so when the healthcare providers are trying to send people to yoga and the yoga teachers aren't, and it's not that it's not the yoga teacher's fault. It's maybe they hadn't, had enough experience, or they haven't explored the practice enough, or they haven't gotten any training in the mechanics of the body. So they're just doing the postures without any understanding of how the joints move and how the muscles work. And then the gap is that without those two communicating, yoga teachers and healthcare providers, then the student kind of is the one that gets lost. And um, I don't think that enough healthcare providers recognize that there are practices and teachers like alignment based yoga specialists who could really come in and fill that gap.
I think all of them, they definitely make sense. Definitely makes sense. I think it really makes you wonder that if one day we'll see, yoga prescriptions written next to physical therapy or medication. I think that will be really, really powerful. And the good thing, I think the best thing here is that it focuses on the technical aspects here more than just the fads or the perception here when it comes to yoga, because everyone, although, and yeah, as you said, the muscles and the joints they are same, but um everyone's bodies are unique, so what position, as in what posture or pose would work or not, in what kind of way, that uh, guidance of doing the yoga, like starting, and then how exactly a posture is done, how you reach to a certain posture. I think that really, really makes a lot of difference. So yeah, I think all of them make sense. And what kind of responses have you got from doctors or medical professionals? Because you're doing this from the ground at Yoga University. What kind of response have seen when the doctors, they see yoga framed this way?
Well, I think the best response I've received is doctors actually getting certified as alignment based yoga specialists. So I've been doing the yoga teacher training program now for about 10 years. And through that time, I've developed this alignment based yoga specialist certification. And I think the greatest compliment to the program is how many healthcare providers have come through this program throughout the past 10 years. How many physical therapists have come through? I've had a physiatrist, an OBGYN medical doctor. I've had acupuncturists come through, actual counselors and therapists come through the program, nurses. Um, So this program speaks to that audience, as well as a yoga teacher and or student who really understands that in order to um, be able to serve the greatest population, we need to understand the machinery that we're working with. So, if you were to take your car, just to a large lot and just expect that one mechanic could fix every car in the exact same way, um, that's not possible, or it would have to be a really good mechanic. It'd have to understand all the different components of every car, and let's be honest, each car kind of does have, they have parts that are in common. So what I think a lot of the yoga teacher trainings lack and is that we're not preparing our teachers well enough to deal with the body. So it's like a mechanic not being prepared enough to deal with the different types of vehicles that show up at the lot. Maybe that's a horrible comparison, I don't know. But basically, when I have a group of students in front of me in my class, and I am giving cues to them and demonstrations to them, I'm watching their bodies. Their bodies are communicating with me whether or not they can follow those instructions and whether or not their bodies are capable of that. If they're not, then I really work with my teachers to be trained well enough to be able to cue things differently, provide options, modifications, variations, so that each student feels like there's a place for them in that class. And I just really think that that's a big piece that's missing in teacher trainings across the board. And so I find that not only do have healthcare providers been drawn to this program, so have teachers that have gone through other programs, but they're getting stuck with not being sure how to help their audiences. And so they're coming back to learn these things. And in my opinion, if we could just get these teachers to learn these things from the beginning, kind of like before they even start to practice the unique style of yoga that they want to do, if they can get these foundational skills underneath their belt, then they will definitely thrive out in the yoga world. And people will come to their classes because they'll feel safe and seen and cared for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Super, super. So, Rachel, before we conclude, if our listeners, um, if any of the doctors or medical professionals are also interested for this, so if they would like to connect with you and also know more about Yoga Oak University or about your alignment-based yoga specialist certification, what would be the best way?
We'll go directly to yogaoakuniversity.com. In that On that website, you'll find information about the alignment-based yoga teacher training program and the alignment-based yoga specialist program. I'm currently working with small groups to take them through the alignment-based yoga specialist program. But there, I will be launching a year-long intensive program with me to assist those who are wanting to go deeper into this and hopefully start spreading it around the world so that more and more of us can really reap the benefits of yoga. Yoga is such a beautiful practice, and in the West we know it as movement, but the truth is movement is just one part of what yoga is, and yoga is so it has something to offer everyone. And so my hope is that more and more people, whether they enter through the movement space or through the more calm spiritual realms, meditation, whatever you want to um to specify, that that each one of us is finding our way back home into our own yoga of alignment.
Super, super. That's really, really beautiful. And listeners, I'll what I'll do for you is I'll have all the details in the show notes. So just refer to them along with this episode on whichever platform you listen to your podcast to. And what I take away from this conversation today is that um, yoga isn't really about touching your toes. It is about touching into the truth of your own body. So, Rachel very, very beautifully reminds us that alignment is less about angles and more about honesty. Honesty with our pain, our stories, and our potential to heal. So, if you have ever felt like yoga wasn't for you, it's too rigid, I need a lot of flexibility in that, it's too intimidating, maybe this is the invitation you needed to move, to breathe, and to begin again in your own way. So, Rachel, thank you so much. This was really, really amazing.
Thank you. Lovely conversation.
Yes. So, to all the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Mindful Living. And I think we are very well reminded us that mindful living isn't a performance, but it is a practice. So, thank you so much to all of you for being here on this journey of realignment with yourself. Until next time, this is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.